Okay, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2. Let me just make sure that I got all my ducks in a row. All right, testing. Okay, wonderful. All right, y'all. Peace. This is gonna be a short live. I had to go ahead and bring this through, but just hit the like button, hit the share button, hit subscribe. For those who come in, I'm not even gonna do that big of an intro, but yeah, just gonna talk a little bit about this rebranding of this dude. I just think it's just gotten way out of hand. Let's just do a little introduction and get it moving. Oh, they got different music now. All right, y'all. Peace to everybody who comes in. Like I said, this is going to be short. This won't even, depending on how fast I read, probably about 15, 20 minutes. It'll be about 30 minutes. But listen, bro, between this guy's unaliving and just the different rabbit holes that I've gone down on the internet, on Facebook. Well, not really on Facebook, on Instagram. That some of these people have lost their mind. I'm gonna put together a whole collage of individuals, white individuals, who have this correct. Because see, despite all the rabbit holes I'm going down with this Charlie Kirk situation as far as black people are concerned, let's give you an idea. It was actually this white guy who is pointing out the racism of Charlie Kirk and among other things, and a black man ran out to try to debunk him, and he had to come back and explain to him how Charlie Kirk's racism was so he had to explain why. I think he was talking about the civil rights movement and how it had to happen because blacks were getting lynched wholesale, as you know, and some of the laws kind of cut that down. And he was trying to break it down, but just the bizarre, just the strange feeling watching this white guy basically make a point for black people and this black guy trying to defend Charlie Kirk. We've already gone through all the context and everything, and I've seen all the trolls. I really did this because one troll just triggered me like, oh, why don't you let the man rest? Well, I'm not going to let him rest. Fuck letting him rest. All right. Why don't you tell your supporters to stop exploiting him? Okay. I mean, that memorial was a mess. It was a complete and total mess. And of course, your leader had to make it all about himself. All right. Couldn't even be gracious. It just shows you that these guys didn't give a damn about this guy's demise. And, I don't want to put the tin hat on, but who knows? Maybe they might have knocked him off because listen, it did get Epstein off the back page, amongst other things. So believe it or not, it might have helped him. I'm not saying that they did do it, but come on, all the conspiracies are out there. Israel, blah, blah, blah. I don't get it because this guy was a piece of shit. But I'm going to go ahead and read this article that basically speaks what I feel here regarding this. And a lot of you YouTubers, let me just say, a lot of these black YouTubers, all right? One guy who's doing the most, this guy Ringo TV, dude, you're doing the most. And I get it. Like, what, it's the 25th now. I mean, I guess rent is due in a few days, and I've seen a bunch of these guys. Like, they're waiting to get this YouTube check. YouTube will demonetize you at the drop of a hat. All right. I don't know why anyone would depend on YouTube, and knowing, okay, now they'll demonetize you once you're gone. I mean, people forget about you quick on here. So I don't get these guys. But then again, let me take that back. I do get it, because the MAGA check, and a lot of these MAGA, these guys are nutty. I mean, young Pharaoh of all people, young Pharaoh hustled MAGA out of close to $500,000. $500,000. And all I can say is that the check, literally, this is how much money he collected, but the check means nothing, because this guy was still crazy. This guy still lost his house. This guy was on YouTube telling us about, giving us health advice while dancing naked in a mushroom haze with another dude on camera. So you want to sell your soul, you can do that. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, like dudes like Ringo, and I see what you're doing, and people are calling him out on it. He doesn't care. I mean, like I said, I'm going to do a whole collage. Hopefully I can put it together tomorrow, of white people, not whites who are in the alphabet community, not whites who are even liberal, just whites who are calling out the BS on this whole Charlie Kirk situation. The rebranding of this dude is just disgusting. But let me go ahead and read this, and then I'm going to go to bed, because I got to get up early tomorrow morning. Celebrating a bigoted rage baiter sends a clear message to people of color, LGBTQ, and folks and women. All right. Charlie Kirk was a divisive, far-right podcaster. Why is he getting rebranded as a national hero? And let me just, before I even start this, they aren't giving a coin to Martin Luther King. They're not giving a coin to Marcus Garvey. How long have we asked for a Harriet Tubman to be on a dollar bill? You're going to give this guy a coin, a national holiday? Again, I think, I don't want to put the tin hat on. They're doing all of this and doing this to keep certain things out the news. That's why they're doing it. All right. They're doing it to keep Epstein out the news. You know that Trump is all over those Epstein papers, but listen, allegedly. All right. But come on, guys. It's too much. But let me read. The streets of Washington, D.C. are unmistakable. In addition to noting the city's signature architecture and public monuments, one will know that they are in the nation's capital when they can barely go half a city block without spotting a U.S. flag. 2 weeks ago, those flags were flying at half staff, but not in recognition of the passing of a high-ranking public official. No, as it would be customary. Instead, the half staff was ordered by the White House in a highly publicized effort to memorialize the September 10th killing, shouldn't have said that word, unaliving, of Charlie Kirk, a 31-year-old podcaster, hard right party operative, and MAGA youth influencer, as an event of a national tragedy. Kirk ruled over an online fiefdom peddling his signature brand of rage-baiting, racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, misogynistic commentary. Let me just check to make sure that, you guys are even hearing me on this. Hold on a second. Let's hold on a second. Okay, we're good. Let me get back to the rage baiting commentary. It wasn't just his vitriolic style, but also his popularization of cruelty, humiliation, and dehumanization of political opponents, especially college students that attracted millions to his audience. He famously said empathy was a made up new age term that does a lot of damage. And let me just say, people don't want to deal with his passing, and they don't want to deal with people speaking out about it because there are so many ironies from statements like that to all the video that's out there to his last words, gang violence. Too many ironies, they don't want to face them. So let me continue. It's an article I'm reading. As a Black woman, I felt no sorrow watching these flags hang limp and lifeless from the chrome posts in the stiff, humid summer heat that even on the eve of autumn will not unhand a city already stifled in federal threats of military occupation. Yeah, that's, again, the irony's thick. I felt the same when, just hours after the shooting, the Speaker of the House of Representatives called for a moment of silence on the floor for a private citizen who had never held office and never served in the military. The brief silence interrupted seconds later into a shouting match melee when Congresswoman Lauren Boebert requested that members held an open prayer for Kirk from the floor. I didn't know this. Just 9 days later, the House passed a Republican resolution eulogizing Kirk's life with a sweeping 310 to 58 majority. I felt no mourning when 7 teams in the National Football League, the very organization that has long been criticized for its inconsistent and often hypocritical stance on the place of politics in sports, held in-game memorials for Kirk, all right, who never played any professional sport, nor held a role within the league. In the Dallas Cowboys Stadium in Texas, the Jumbotrons featured a statesman-like image of Kirk, what one might expect for the passing of a former president or a longtime team affiliate, like Tom Landry. The grand gesture was drenched in hard-to-miss hypocrisy, forced silence from Black players who were punished for advocating for social justice in 2020, while in the end zone, a painted AstroTurf read "End Racism," a relic of just how fleeting the league's lip service to the Black Lives Matter movement just a few years ago proved to be. I feel no grief because these memorials to Kirk are not created for me to grieve. Instead, they seek not only to enshrine Kirk into the national consciousness, but also to foster national memories about what he represents ideologically and culturally. The lionizing is an official effort to coalesce the state into his movement, a brazen proclamation that his consistently hostile white nationalist, homophobic, misogynistic convictions represent the federal government's interests and thus what the presidency believes should be the national priority. It's reminiscent of the long aftermath of the Civil War, when Confederate memorials were fashioned well into the 20th century, not by those seeking to grieve any one individual, no, but rather by those who wanted to send a message about racial politics in the present. Some people, they've settled comfortably into the belief that the recent years of anti-racism protests and organizing have successfully toppled enough of these Confederate monuments, that their whitewashed histories collapse with them. But Memorials to Kirk, conducted by the country's most powerful institutions, are evidence of the revival of the new iteration of neo-Confederate memorialization. Like the Confederate tributes and monuments of the past, current memorials to Kirk function to throttle any interrogation of their subject. Those who are elevated to the esteem of official national memorializing are commonly, although with notable exceptions, figures that the public agrees are beyond reproach. In honoring Rosa Parks with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1996, for example, Bill Clinton sought to canonize the entire civil rights movement for which she fought. It cemented the era as worthy of national honor because it telegraphed the meaning of democracy from freedom of all for all Americans. Let me just quickly look into the chat. But yeah, this article pretty much it just details what I feel regarding this. What's up, Powell Bunyan? Anybody else listening to the clouds? Yeah. Yes, and sir, they are. I'm telling you, just looking at these guys, they don't the YouTube trolls. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. Let me continue with this. In contrast with the extolling of Kirk, Donald Trump, who has announced that his late close personal friend will be awarded the posthumous Medal of Freedom. Donald Trump has made a joke of your office, bro. He has made an absolute mockery of this office that you hold such high esteem. Echoes the intentions behind the Confederate memorials of yore instead of public recognitions that reflect the long march towards national reckoning with our past. Memorials like those for Kirk elevate his consistent record of hard right extremism above the reach of public questioning. Kirk's style of seizing upon those who challenge his ideologies and punishing his detractors is an agenda that has expanded well beyond Trump's record of punishing his personal and political enemies. Though I, like the majority of Kirk's critics, do not condone his shooting. Kirk himself said gun deaths were worth it to maintain gun rights. While rhetoric this extreme, including his claim that Black women in government and media lacked brain processing power, is being euphemized as tributes to his advocacy for free speech. Media figures and government employees who openly question if he should be publicly lauded are being fired from their jobs. You can check my community section. You got a woman, and the good thing, she's fighting back too. Fired from her job because she tweeted a quote. Karen Atia, I have it in my community. She's fighting back right now. She's lawyered up, which is good. Additionally, hundreds of college professors were doxxed. This is from his organization, by the way. Harassed and threatened by Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, and its notorious professor watch list, which has published the names and information of any academics with views Kirk construed as incompatible with his own. It's curious how a virtue like doing politics the right way, some idiot's editor or something wrote that article, can be afforded to someone who sought to devastate the lives of scholars and intellectuals. The aggrandizing of Kirk shares yet another more lasting legacy with Confederate memorialization. The historian David Blight notes that in the aftermath of the Civil War, the call for recognition between white Northerners and Southerners was achieved at the expense of erasing the legacy of slavery from the postbellum narrative. Thus, the reunification of the white citizenry was done wholly on Southern terms and exasperated the racial atrocities that were never addressed in the post-war era, leaving Black Americans to be wholesale lynched and terrorized throughout the South. Further still, reunification campaigns exonerated and elevated rebel insurgents who were, by definition, traitors and enemies of the state to a status otherwise reserved for senior statesmen and decorated U.S. veterans. It was a damning declaration that even those who sought to overthrow this country will be celebrated as heroes before Black Americans will be treated as its citizens. This is why it's so insane that you have Black people. I may even show that clip before we leave here. Black people defending Kirk while whites are I may show that clip. This same tone is struck in the tributes to Kirk that exalt a highly controversial private citizen as though he were a national hero. It's insane. Elected officials, journalists, and public figures who on the left who stress calls for unity do so on the right's terms, which is true, and are reminiscent of the kid-gloved white Northerners who sought to rebrand a war fought expressively over human trafficking and bondage into a national moment for celebration of duty, honor, and valorous military service on both sides. Those of us who call to honor the life of a man who said that the 1964 Civil Rights Act was a huge mistake, and who described Martin Luther King as awful, and who betrayed those of us who heard Kirk espouse eugenics and the replacement theory loud and clear, with such vast online influence that it prompted a 2024 investigation by the Southern Poverty Law Center. This valorization of Kirk by his far-right defenders is an insult to millions of the most marginalized Americans who've lived every day in the crosshairs of his rhetoric. Kirk's memorialization by his supporters and apologists is but a new opportunity to announce an old message, but whose country this is and whose it isn't. This article was written by a professor, Seda Grundy. She's an associate professor of sociology. And the article, it's over at The Guardian. It's called Charlie Kirk Was a Divisive Far-Right Podcaster. Why is he being rebranded as a national hero? And I'll leave the link in the description. And I hope this Seda Grundy doesn't apologize for this like she apologized some years ago for, basically, I think she said something that offended, I think some white professors or whatever, but she told the truth. But I mean, just the rebrand of this dude is sickening. You're getting this guy a coin. You're talking about building statues for what? And I like I said, I mean, dude went to college campuses and debated 17 and 18-year-olds with his crew behind him. But people don't understand. He didn't go there by himself and do a one-on-one. No, he did it he basically tried to bully them with his talking points. Kids who didn't even have their foot in the ground on which direction they're going. And this was just a bully tactic. Go look at the debates that this guy has had with grown-ups. This man got smoked like a blunt and then stomped out like a roach. Absolutely smoked in every one-on-one debate he had. So I just wanted to read this. This is exactly, and other people have done this as well, and this is just sickening that this guy, who was sponsored by a billionaire, some billionaire picked him up at 18, and his guy was grifting since high school. Maybe I should get that clip. Let me see if I can find that Joy Reid clip where she broke down exactly what his trajectory was. Hold on a second. I can get it for you. But yeah, we are. Some of us have lost our mind, man, for real. And like I said, most black people, they're on the right side of this. All right, they know that this they already know about Kirk and but still, like, come on, guys. Like, come on, really. Hold on a second. Let me just let me get this clip. Um and she broke it down very well. And come on. You know what? Let me do this. Okay, here we go. All right, let's see. I'm sure I should be able to find it here. Yes, here we go. Fair use, fair use, fair use. Yes. Give me a second here, folks, and I will go ahead and you're going to hear this from Joy Reid. She was on Angela Yee's podcast, and being one of his direct targets, let's just
Bill Montgomery, who was...
Hold on, let me redo this. Give me a sec, y'all. Give me a sec. Here we go.
Yes.
Now, talk about that watch list, because I don't know if people really know about this.
Right. And first of all, what you have to understand about Charlie Kirk is the reason he dropped out of junior college at 18 years old is because he was discovered by a man named Bill Montgomery, who was a Tea Partier, a very rich, I think probably billionaire, who spotted him when he was in high school spouting free market conservative ideas and convinced him, became his mentor. This man was 72 years old, and he gave him $4.7 million to start Turning Point USA. And the first thing that Turning Point USA did, they started this in 2012. This is when Barack Obama was running for re-election, and a lot of the right were really fearful that he had the youth on their side. What they had was Rush Limbaugh, whose audience was much older. So what they decided they needed to do was take that Rush Limbaugh energy, right-wing talk radio, and get it with the young people, right? And get it on the campuses. And the right has always been angry that they feel college campuses are too liberal. So Turning Point USA was really started by the 72-year-old man, Bill Montgomery, but he was the face, Charlie Kirk. And what they did was they sent him onto campuses to try to argue for the free market. When that didn't really take off, he eventually turned to things that are easier to sell: racism, sexism, misogyny, just hate talk. But that started to make it take off. And during the pandemic, he really blew up. That is where he came from. And so, one of the projects that Turning Point USA created that still exists to this day is what they called a campus watch list. And what that is a snitch list. They basically encourage people on college campuses who are conservative to report on their professors who they think are too liberal, who spout liberal ideas. They put their names, their addresses. In some cases, they dox them, and they encourage them to be attacked. And so some of the people on that watch list, who are mainly Black women, brown folks, gay folks, people who are minorities, are on that list. They've been doxxed. They've been terrorized. People have reported getting death threats from being on that list. Yes.
Now, talk about that watch list, because I don't know if people...
You see that, folks? I mean, there's very Christian of them, by the way. I'm very Christian of them. But let me see if I can find the... let me see if I can find the other thing. It's just, it's crazy. I mean, whenever you think, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. But again, this keeps, hey, no one's talking about Epstein lately, have they? At least nobody in the, nobody's talked about him as far as, front page news. Okay, people already know, right? But let's see. Let me see. Oh yeah. Let's go. Let's listen to this for a second, folks. And I got to put a whole collage together for this, but oh, good Lord. Hold on a second, folks. Hold on. I want you to listen to this, and then we're out of here. But this just shows you that when you dig deep in the rabbit hole, and this is not even the worst, but when you got a white guy who's basically defending the honor of Black folks, and then, well, y'all just let you look for yourself. Let's start first of all. Go.
lot of white folks commenting on my last video asking for proof that Charlie Kirk was an outspoken racist. And there are many horrible quotes to choose from, but there's one that I haven't seen get quite as much attention that I believe is head and shoulders worse than all the rest. In December of 2023, Kirk said, quote, "We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s," end quote. And to understand why him saying this is so heinous, so barbaric, you have to understand Jim Crow, which is what the Civil Rights Act officially ended in 1964. And I don't say this for shameless self-promotion, but I'm an expert on Jim Crow. I wrote a book about slavery and Jim Crow in 2018. And I just spent the last year and a half of my life making a documentary that covers these same time periods. So during Jim Crow, a black person who was just walking down the street could be picked up at any moment and brutally lynched or tortured and murdered for the crime of flirting with a white woman or any crime they might be accused of without any evidence being presented, no trial. And often these murders were performed in the presence of dozens or even hundreds of white onlookers who would never face any legal repercussions for their actions. So for Charlie Kirk to say it was a mistake to end that system of terror, Jim Crow, and that barbarism toward the black community, it doesn't just prove that he was a racist, but it shows that he was determined to profit off of racism and selective outrage and to build his political and media empire on the back of our 400-year legacy of anti-black racism in this nation. Okay, so I've had a whole lot of white.
Okay. So he does this video, and this guy's name is Matthew Pridgen, right? Okay. So what we'll do, right? He does the video, and so I guess a black Mr. Charlie supporter caught wind of it, right? All right. So let's get his rebuttal, his response for Pridgen going after Mr. Charlie, right? Let's get his response. All right. This guy right here, this guy. Because it was a pretty good breakdown. And if he wrote, this is my first time learning of him, but if he wrote a book about that, then yeah. Okay. But here's this guy's response. And I didn't hear the whole thing yet, but I guess I'm going to hear it all now.
Okay, so I've had a whole lot of white folks commenting on my last video asking for proof that Charlie Kirk was an outspoken racist. And there are many horrible quotes to choose from, but there's one that I haven't seen get quite as much attention that I believe is head and shoulders worse than all the rest. In December of 2023, Kirk said, quote, "We made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s," end quote.
See how he said end quote? Charlie Kirk has explained his reasoning behind this multiple times. And these people have to leave out the context in order to paint the picture they want to paint. Listen to Charlie Kirk talking about this.
You said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the parts of the Civil Rights Act were great, but the way it's now being implemented to force men in female bathrooms to push forward the trans agenda, the intent of the Civil Rights Act is way beyond what it was originally authored for.
But the intent specifically originally was to...
Well, that's interesting. So the intent and the law are two different things. So the intent was noble, which was to say that no American can be not allowed into a place of business based on the color of their skin or their ethnic heritage. Totally agreement with that.
Did we see what he just said?
Are two different things. So the intent was noble, which was to say that no American can be not allowed into a place of business based on the color of their skin or their ethnic heritage. Totally agreement with that.
So he said he's totally in agreement with that. He also said it was noble. Let's actually look at the definition of noble real quick. Number 2 is the definition that applies. Having or showing fine personal qualities or high moral principles and ideals. So he's saying the Civil Rights Act had high moral principles. It was noble. It was good. He says he's in agreement with the intent. So no, he doesn't want black people being denied at water fountains. He does not think we shouldn't have rights in this country. Now let's let him continue.
That's not what the law only did. It created a massive anti-racist DEI army that then gave us affirmative action. For example, recently, Merrick Garland sued using the Civil Rights Act, saying that we cannot have voter ID in certain states because it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. So basically what the Civil Rights Act did, is that it went beyond disparate impact and then went to disparate effect. In the sense where if Black Americans are not doing as well as white Americans in a certain category, you can now use the Civil Rights Act and say that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act, even though there might be other contributing factors. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's too broad, too wide, and it's now doing a lot of damage to the country. It's being used well beyond its original intent.
So he said it's being used well beyond its original intent. So to make it very simple, he thinks the intent behind the act was good. He 100% thinks that Black people should not be discriminated against due to their skin color. So he says the bill should be more concise and it should not be used in all these different broad ways that it's being used. All these people consistently take him out of context and they make sure to leave him out of context. Just a reminder, I have a free email newsletter where I give you morning updates about what's going on, and I go into more depth on many of these topics. The link is on my profile. Just go there, click the link. You'll see this screen here. Drop your email in and you'll be good to go.
Okay, so I've had a whole...
And so he says that, all right? But, dude, he didn't finish with that, though. So let's go back. Let's go back. And so he answers this fool who decides to say this. So let's go back and answer this fool, because these Charlie Kirk apologists, they're always crying about you cutting up things. But that guy did a whole cut up though. And he didn't even finish. So let's hear his response.
All right, I want to take a moment to respond to this post by Jeffrey Mead using my video where I claimed that Charlie Kirk was a racist because he said that the Civil Rights Act was a, quote, huge mistake, unquote. And Mr. Mead's video has a clip in it of Kirk explaining his rationale behind this comment. I'm then accused of cherry picking and taking the quote out of context. But what Mr. Mead failed to show was the rest of my video where I explained the horrible practice of lynching that the Civil Rights Act ended, where Black people were brutally murdered in broad daylight without due process and then photographed. And those photographs of their mutilated bodies were then sent around as postcards. And here's my question. What context could ever justify calling the law, the Civil Rights Act, that ended this practice a, quote, huge mistake, end quote? Like, what goes after that end quote to make it okay? You see, by the time Kirk got to the end quote, he had already accomplished his purpose. It doesn't matter what he says next. Inflammatory statements like this one are exactly how Kirk built his empire. And what it is a political dog whistle. It sends a signal to white people, in this case, to get them to vote for the convicted felon who is unraveling our nation one thread at a time as we speak. And I am heartbroken that Charlie Kirk was murdered. It is beyond horrible. There's no excuse for political violence anytime, anywhere. But he wasn't a good guy. He wasn't a martyr. He was a political operative who used Jesus as a cover to promote this racist and authoritarian Trump regime. All right, I want to take a moment to respond to this post.
I mean, when you're in the put yourself in position, when you're Black and you're trying to defend a dude who clearly isn't Black, a white guy who clearly isn't anything but white male first, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. And this isn't even the deepest rabbit hole. Like I said, there's other stuff. I'm gonna just try to get a collection of other things that I've seen. This has just gotten insane. But certain people are glad this happened. This has kind of emboldened the right a little bit. Jimmy Kimmel's back in the air, which is good. So, and I don't watch Jimmy. I don't watch any of these late night shows. But still, man, like when you're a Black person and you're sitting here, you got all these videos trying to run interference for Kirk. I mean, we're like, again, most Black folks, we are on the right side of this. Most of us, we're not crazy like this dude, but some of us, we just need, we're just dead. All right. But yeah, I just wanted to get into this, man, because then the trolls, you're welcome to comment. All right. The comment section is always open. Once I get monetized, you guys are gonna have to pay them to drop a comment. So better do it now while it's free. Like, share, subscribe. All right. And yeah, man, this Charlie Kirk thing, this is just this is madness. If there's a coin made of Charlie Kirk, I'm and I'm just packing my bags and leaving. Seriously, like, come on already. I know that mediocre white men run the country, but come on, bro, this is just a little too much. But listen, man, like I said, just hit the like, share, subscribe, do the knowledge, hit the Cash App as well, and just drop a comment if you have anything to say about this. Thanks for joining. Got to wake up early in the morning tomorrow to go into the city. So thanks again. And, last call. Thanks for coming in, Powell, Bunyan, and everybody else in the clouds. And peace out, man. I'm out of here.